All right. Good afternoon, and good afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you for embracing us as we have been missing in action for quite some time. But we're surely going to make it up to you guys. And today we wanted to make sure to tap in. So today we're going to talk legacy talk, no time like the present. So let's just kick it off by saying hello. How's it going, Lisa?
Hey, Sandy B. Law. Everything's good with me. Glad to be back here. Like you said, MIA for a little bit, but we're back on the scene and we're just going to kind of get to the meat of the issues.
Definitely need to. For those that haven't been tapping in with us, we're undergoing some changes in scheduling, so you will notice that we're going to have to make some real adjustments to the time that we go live. But we appreciate you for tuning in. Please click like, please click share, please subscribe to the channel so that you can get all this good information. So, as I said, today we're going to talk some legacy and we're going to focus on the present. This month is National Make a Will Month. All month long, there has been information up and information out about the importance and the little things that you can do to really get your affairs in order. And we figured we would just tap in and talk to you guys about a few things. In particular, we know Aretha Franklin's estate just wrapped up, and that just gives you so many lessons that you can learn from that.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
Lisa, what did you take from this Aretha Franklin situation?
Well, what I took from that situation is that you want to do things in decency and in order. You have to trust somebody. So find an attorney or someone that you can rely upon for estate planning and get things done. Get them done early and often so you don't have to, your heirs don't have to end up in messy situation, court battles, courtrooms, judges, lawyers. I'm sure Mrs. Franklin did not want her children to end up in that situation.
Yeah, I don't know if she even processed that her children would go through that type of scenario. I think it's just hard for people to really realize unless it happens to them.
Right.
For me, I've had quite a few family scenarios where I've had to deal with an estate. So it's like, I'm preaching about certain things that I indeed have had to endure and experience. So it's not, new to me.
Right.
But, I figured, as we have this conversation, maybe we could take a look a little bit at this Aretha Franklin situation and talk a little bit about some of these lessons. So, for those who are not aware, the Aretha Franklin estate just recently wrapped up. And one of the core issues with this estate had to do with a handwritten document that was found in her couch. And this handwritten document was found to be valid and effective to transfer Aretha Franklin's estate. That's crazy. This was tucked into the couch. And of course, so many people have had commentary about this estate and the issues surrounding it. So let's see what the AARP has to say about their 5 estate planning lessons from Aretha Franklin's will. Now, Miss Aretha, she would sing with the best of them at
She
all
could sing,
times.
she could sing, but she held on to that pocketbook though,
That pocketbook,
and she
I'm
always
surprised I don't
wanted to
see it.
get she always wanted to get paid in cash too.
Look, Miss Aretha, we with all due respect, RESPECT, we respect Miss Aretha, but Great Googly Moogly, her estate had some serious twists, turns, wind ups, wind downs. I was just like, what in the world is going on here? Look at Kimberly Curry Smith. Hey, Kim, thanks for tuning in. She said, destroy the old will
Hmm.
if you make a new one. Girl,
Yeah,
how many times have we told people
good
to get
one.
rid of the old and bring in that new? But
You
folks
are
don't.
so right. Thank you for that tip, Kimberly. That's a good one.
But who are we to say anything? We're just attorneys. I mean, God forbid we actually tell people to do the right thing.
Oh boy.
Um, so let's take a look at what AARP says. So AARP goes through the details about this situation, and they say that, she taught her fans about respect and pride and gospel during her long career. But
Mhm.
5 years after her death, she's giving us all a lesson about how to provide for our heirs and how not to. Now,
Mhm.
while
Mhm.
she was known as the Queen of Soul and she sang hits like Respect, or better yet, Respect, and Think, she died in 2018, August of 2018 to be exact. So just about, a matter of around this time of year. And she was thought to have passed away without a will, meaning that the bulk of her estate would, like her real estate, her jewelry, her music royalties would be split among her four boys by a judge. But what we ended up finding out was that there actually was a will. So even though there was a family member, her niece, that had volunteered to be the executor, or in Florida, the personal representative of the will, I'm sorry, personal representative of the estate, basically we ended up finding that there were some discoveries of some handwritten wills. So on July 11th, a Michigan jury decided that the handwritten will from 2014, which was found in her couch, was valid, and it overrides a 2010 will that was discovered around the same time in a locked cabinet in her home. So the lesson that Kim just mentioned in the chat, you got to get rid of the old. If you're going to create a new one, you got to get rid of the old. Now, it says it's not unusual for people to die intestate, which is, estate planning language, when you die without a will. Whereas if you die with a will, it's testate. But it's unusual for someone with that many assets to do so, right? How many times, Lisa, who were the other ones that we've talked about recently that had many assets and died without a will? Um,
Yeah, we've talked about a few. Why they're all escaping me right now, I don't know. I know, let me see.
Prince,
Prince was, yeah, we talked about Prince not too long ago.
Chadwick
Um,
Boseman,
Chadwick, yeah, you got it. You got it. And there's other ones out
Nipsey
there.
Hussle.
Nipsey didn't, yeah, okay, Nipsey didn't have a will as well. So so many celebrities out there, black and white, all over the place, that just forget to do this or don't think it's important. Um, in Aretha's situation, she didn't even trust lawyers.
Yeah.
She didn't trust people with the most personal of her affairs. And that's why she never could confide in anyone well enough to get estate planning done. So she tried to do it on her own and working on it while she was watching TV and stuck it down in the couch.
I'm so done. I mean, we hear stories so much about wealthy celebrities who don't have their legal documents in order, even though, they should. Now, in this case, she left what's called a holographic will, which is basically a
Handwritten.
handwritten will, which leads us to some estate planning lessons based on the Queen of Soul. Um, so, in many states, a handwritten will left in a couch can be valid as one drawn up by lawyers, can be as valid as the one drawn up by lawyers and filed at the courthouse. Um, Now, what this says is, there are different ways that you can do a will, and the court has to determine whether your will is valid if your, will has to be presented to the court. So, it's important to know what in your state counts as a valid will. So, like, handwritten wills are provided for in all of these states, right? But Florida, I don't believe, is on board with this handwritten will concept.
No.
We have some restrictions on, what you can do in terms of preparing your will, and handwriting is not one of them here in Florida.
Yeah,
Most,
as a general rule, but I'm sure there has been some exceptions in the sense that if there's indication that someone means the writing to be their will and they
Mhm,
sign it in the presence with the formalities that would make it legal,
right.
um, that would be the exception. But someone just writing on a note who gets what and then signing their signature at the end of it is not going to cut it.
Yeah, so it's not going to be that simple. It's not like a contract where you could probably make a contract on a napkin, right? But
Right.
a will, there are some formalities that you have to have. Um, and some states allow you to have a handwritten, some states don't. So you just need to, some tip for you is you need to make sure what goes in your state. What are you allowed to have in the will? How should the will be prepared? And any other details like that. Um, Number two on this list by AARP says a will should be clear. Now, here is an area where I've had several scenarios where the will did not provide some understanding of what the person wanted to happen. And so, what ended up happening is we now had to, instead of following language in the will because it didn't exist, we had to follow state law, which you might intend for everything you own to go to, say, one of your children. But if it's not made clear in your will, we're going to follow state law, which basically says everything's going to be divided even, Steven.
Right. And it might not be what you want according to state law. I had a situation where uh, a person passed away, and the person that was inheriting from them was only inheriting from them because that person who died did not have a will.
Right.
And the person inheriting actually told me that this person would have never wanted them to receive anything from them because they had estranged relationships during their lifetimes. They weren't even speaking.
Right.
So the person's almost laughing about receiving everything that this person owned because they knew that had this person known that this was happening, they wouldn't have allowed it. But the law did.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point. It's like we have to make sure that the information that we put in our will is what we want it to be. The language should be plain, it should not be complicated. The language should be very intentional about how you want things done because sometimes people are like, oh, well, my daughter will do it. So just leave everything to my daughter. Well, your daughter, when she receives everything, can now do whatever she wants because you haven't broken down in your document what you want to happen. So if your children have a falling out, guess what your daughter is going to say? Well, the will says everything goes to me, so I don't care about the rest of y'all.
Oh my God, that is actually more common. The more common scenario, I've seen that situation where you give, like you just said, you give it to the one person, and there might be five children. You give the house to that one child, and your instructions are that I wish for them to sell it once they receive it and to divide everything, all the proceeds with the other children, but you've given it to the one person already. So now it's really literally up to them if they want to go and sell it and divide sale proceeds.
Yep, that's facts. So please keep in mind that your will has to be very clear. We're going through this AARP list, which basically gives you 5 estate planning lessons from Aretha Franklin's will. So let's go down to number 3 here. Number 3 says the most recent version of a will usually prevails over an older one. So, one thing to keep in mind is the language of your will has to be clear to say that you're revoking your previous documents. Because if you go and write another will and you don't clearly revoke the previous will, you may be just tacking on some additional language to a will, right? You may not be changing the first will or the second will or the third will. So it's very important that you are very clear about what version of your will is valid in the language of the document. That's why you
Right.
sit down with somebody who knows what they're doing to get that part done. Um,
That's a good point. So when you prepare that second will, I mean, is it clear that it's replacing the first will, or will the court look at both of those documents that they need to be read together as one big document? You know, almost like a
yeah.
the second document will be treated as a supplement to the will. So yeah, very good point there.
Absolute. Number 4 basically says it doesn't hurt to get professional advice. Now, we're in the age of technology. Everybody wants to just do stuff quickly and go online and just fill stuff in or go buy a package that has the documents. But please remember that each of us has very different circumstances in our lives. So wills are not one size fits all. So you have to make sure that your will satisfies your intentions and your plan for what you want to happen to your stuff. And if you don't carefully make sure that that's done, what ends up happening is your will may not even fit your circumstances.
Yeah.
So talk to a lawyer, talk to somebody, make sure that you get that together. Number 5, the IRS is always first in line. Now, your heirs won't get money until any IRS tax claims are satisfied. So, Franklin's estate in this case paid $8.1 million to the IRS since the singer's death. Now, this is with no planning. You have to consider with no planning for this tax issue, you're going to have a lot of issues, right? So you have to keep in mind that the goal is for you to plan while you're living so that you don't end up with a taxable estate after you pass. That's why it's important you have a estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, an accountant. You should have a team of individuals who are working through your scenario to make sure that you are in the best place possible after the fact, right? So you don't want to leave your family with look at this, $8.1 million. Something could have been done with that money.
Wow. So advanced planning could have probably protected that money so that it went to family members instead of the IRS. And it's very interesting that the estate paid 8.1 million to the IRS. We know that the federal estate tax exemption amount is 12,060,000. So I'm wondering if that was a state tax that had to be paid. You know what I mean? Like that could be federal. I'm sorry, it could be state estate taxes versus federal, because it looks like she would have been exempted up to 12 million something. Interesting. I don't know. Only really an accountant probably can help her figure that out. But at any rate, it does show that we need to do advanced planning and cut our losses and really do leave a healthy legacy.
Yes, indeed. And you already know August is National Make a Will Month. This is a great time that you can tap in with somebody and ask some questions about this topic of wills and maybe even find out if a trust is something that you would need. Shout out to Doug. I'm so glad. Doug always looks for us. I appreciate you, Doug. Doug knows when we're missing in action. He's just like, where are these ladies at? And he said, is this the new time for the podcast? Doug, we don't even know. We are so discombobulated schedule wise, and we've literally had to try to find times to come on. So we're working on that. We're trying to figure out what's a sweet spot for both of us, but it looks like we're going to have to do our lunch hours since both of us are tied up all day at this point. But shout out to you, Doug. We so appreciate you. You've been our A1 since day one. So, we truly appreciate you, Doug. But guys, again, National Make a Will Month, all month long, August. You got 2 more days. Tap in, Google National Make a Will Month. Look up some tips and resources that will help you. And if you need anything, you got our email. Send us a message, and we can put our lawyer hat on for a moment to at least get you some resources, even though we may not be able to help you. All right. So guys, I hope you have a great day. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a good one, guys.
Hope to see you this time next week, guys. Have a good one.
Indeed. Bye, Doug.
Bye.